It's time for the Charlotte FC podcast. Welcome to Charlotte FC podcast. Nick Finelli here. I'm joined with a special person I've already had on the podcast, but more in just the interview. And now we're going to talk about the match, and it is Ross Smith. Welcome, Ross.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me on again. It's great.
Yeah, so if you don't know Ross, he's just a super sharp and wonderful, nice guy. He's had a playing career, of course, and he was at Portland covering them, and now he's with MLS Season Pass, and we're here to actually break down the clash between Charlotte FC and Real Salt Lake. Real's playing well as of late, even though they just lost last week to New York Red Bulls, but they only had two losses in all of June and July, and now into August, and that was to Red Bulls and then a home game to FC Cincinnati, who Charlotte just saw. And then Charlotte, on the flip side, has won 5 in a row and has not really lost since a spell in June where they lost 3 of 4 and also had a difficulty in May. So they are kind of on the upward trend. So, Ross, what are you thinking about going into this match? You've seen them a lot. You've been covering a lot of Charlotte's matches.
Yeah, it's a real interesting one, Nick, just given where both teams are in the standings and RSL just slightly outside the playoff line looking to get in, and Charlotte, because of this run, they've put themselves back in the picture after what was a tough go for a little bit being on the road. But before Leagues Cup, and I know Leagues Cup didn't go well for Charlotte, but you look at the regular season form and it's been really good, and it's been really good despite changes that are happening with Patrick Agyemang being transferred out, Pep Biel going down now. And so to rejig the team, Malanda just coming back. You've been without your star center back. Kalina starting to come around to form. He was brilliant in the last game. And so your goalkeeper of the year hasn't had the best of seasons, but is starting to turn things around. To be where you are right now and not hitting top gear is a good sign, because you can only hope the way it's trending for Charlotte right now that it's going to get better and better. And this is the time of year when you want things to start to click.
Yeah, you definitely want to peak. You see that's who makes the runs. It's not necessarily the best team all year round. It's the one who can make that run at the end of the year and be in that form.
Yeah.
So looking directly at this match, we got no Diego Luna. I know we were expecting that, but a little incident there at the end there, and he gets 2 yellows, which puts him in a red, and now he's out. And I know RSL has played without him when he was with the U.S. national team, but how does RSL change their attack, and who becomes the creative outlet in this?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because Luna, I did think it was worthy of a yellow card and of a second yellow card. Sometimes the threshold for a second yellow card is a bit more than your first. Tricky one, and it's disappointing. It's a plus for Charlotte not having Diego Luna in the 11 facing you, but in terms of the broadcast, when you step in, as you know, on the media side, you want to see the best talent on the pitch, of course. So difficult one there. RSL, they've got a player called Gonzalez, who's that sort of same number 10 style. I wonder if Pablo Mastroeni will change his system slightly. He likes to play a back 4, and then you're holding 2, and then the next 2 in front are almost like 2 number 10s. They can split out wide, but really they're good pocket players, as we like to call them. And then your 2 strikers on top of it. And so Diego Luna would occupy one of those number 10s. I just wonder if Diego Gonzalez will occupy that number 10 role on his own, and we see a slight change of system. So Gonzalez, wonderful player, but he can come in and out of the game. He can drift in and out of it. If he's on the ball and he's doing well, then he's terrific, but he can go missing as well. So I would look for that player. That's the obvious replacement. That's the obvious guy who really needs to step up in that role.
All right. And then on the other side, again, you already mentioned no Pep Biel. Has Charlotte been able to figure out who is going to be in that place? They tried Wilf for a little bit in FC Cincinnati, maybe to get him more touches and have some more control. They ended up moving him back out to the left side, and kind of Vargas played in that spot. What do you see them doing with the 10 now? Because that still seems like an area that they need to figure out.
Yeah, it's Really interesting. And you know what, Nick? I thought when I saw that 11, I thought that's a blow to Eric Williamson. And the last game of Leagues Cup, I was covering the game, and Eric was good. You think of the goal that was scored. Oh, who put the final touch on it? I'm thinking of the build-up play. It was up to Eric Williamson, set it back for Westwood, who played it along the line to Cambridge, and then Cambridge whipped in
Cambridge
the
and
ball.
Smalls.
And Smalls had the final touch. But that was a nice bit of interchange between Williamson and Westwood. And I thought we were starting to see a relationship there, and Williamson linking up with the central midfielders. But I did make the point in the game, in the last Leagues Cup game, saying Williamson almost needs to go up another level. That Pep Biel in this game would make it his game. He would take over. He would end up getting another assist, or he would get a goal. And it just felt like Williamson a little bit of, okay, we're good. We're good here.
Right.
Instead of being
Yeah.
that cutthroat, I'm going to make it so obvious that Dean Smith isn't going to take me out of the team. And I've seen Eric Williamson, seen him closely at Portland. I was previously with Portland on the broadcast side, and Eric was fantastic. One of the best midfielders in this league. He's gone through a couple real rough years with his ACL, and he's done tremendously well to come back. But he's needing to prove himself with a manager who I think first and foremost, you got to stick in. You got to stick in. You got to commit every single second of the game. And Eric could be guilty of it seeming as though he's falling out of games, that he's drifting at times. But when he turns it on, he is superb. And we started to see that in the last Leagues Cup game. But I think with Eric, it's the understanding on the Dean Smith. You can't drift in and out. You can't have a moment of brilliance and then we don't see you for 5-10 minutes. You need to be brilliant all the time on both sides of the ball. So I say that, which I'd be surprised if we see Eric coming back in. But what does that mean then? Does Wilfred Zaha start at the number 10? He drifted outside and Kerwin Vargas started to play in that little pocket. It's interesting. Dean Smith can go so many different ways in what it comes down to. He can go with three similar type of players with Gianni, Bronico, Westwood.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, Nick. As I go through all the different scenarios in my mind, I don't know what Dean Smith, where he sees the strength in matching up against RSL, what he has to account for and going forward. But Zaha, I think as long as he gets his touches on the ball, he can play in there. Of course he can. He's got the technical ability. I didn't think he got enough touches on the ball against Cincinnati, but when he did, he was good. And you could see him, and I know he's become demonstrative, and he's taken a lot of stick for how he acts towards his teammates. The referee's always complaining. But what I would say is he's got a point. Get him on the ball. Get him the ball as much as possible and see what he does with it. And I think now he's starting to evolve as a player. He doesn't have the legs to go and run past you quite like what he used to. He still has an injection of pace, but what it is showing now is his technical ability, and he's had that, which helps the longevity of his career. Anyways, it's my long-winded answer, Nick, to you to think I'd be interested to see Zaha go back in there again to start the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wilf's had 3 goals and 7 assists on this 9-game stretch of goal contributions. So, and he's kind of doing it in all areas. So that's why I think Dean tried to put him in there, because he's like you said, more touches, but they just didn't seem to get him there. And Wilf seems to have more space, kind of knowing he's looking at goal rather than playing behind it or kind of going in both directions. It seems like, he's more comfortable on that side. But I think he'll go back over there. I think he'll go back over there and they'll try. Brandt had a couple of good runs in FC Cincinnati, and they might use him to push forward more because he won't have to cover Evander and he won't have to cover Luna like he's usually targeted to do when we have somebody playing there. So who knows?
Yeah. I think Dean Smith is one of the best managers in the league at nullifying their opponent and understanding. And the fact that they don't have Diego Luna, that they have Diogo Gonçalves, like I said, but without Luna in there, you don't have as much to worry about and to, like I said, to nullify and to take out of the game. But I look at, there's many instances with Dean Smith where he's gone up against it. Columbus Crew is one of the best examples with Dean Smith. What he puts out for his plan to nullify is brilliant. So it'll be interesting to see. And I feel as though Dean Smith, he starts there, figure it out, and then he works to his strength going forward. So it'll be interesting. There's a lot of thought that goes in behind the manager's decisions.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of it has to do with just Dean like sticking to like, hey, we're going to play this mid block because it's going to control this middle third. It's going to be compact. We're going to stay in shape. We keep passing lanes so it doesn't allow them to move. Teams have to play really wide in order to kind of get in through it, or they play over the top, which Charlotte was susceptible to a couple times earlier in the year. So
Yeah.
is that something that fits well with, because you talked about almost playing 2 10s for RSL. Are they going to be able to kind of squeeze in those areas and make that mid block harder for Charlotte to keep the shape?
Yeah, it's interesting with because to your point, I feel like with Charlotte and with the strength in the middle, you do have to go round the outsides to be able to get at them. And Charlotte aren't the team that are going to come out and press. And you can understand like Wilfred Zaha isn't going to go and press the whole game and really run up to the center backs. And I think Dean Smith is well aware that he just doesn't have that style of player that are gonna grind and grunt it out up there to first and foremost to close down. So I think that with Dean Smith, it'll make it really difficult for ourselves. It's interesting because then, what does Pablo Mastroeni do to be able to get beyond, to get around the outside? He's got a couple of new strikers that he's signed that I'm sure one of them he's wanting to unveil. Victor Olatunji is been signed from Sparta Prague, and he's waiting for his visa to come through. I don't know what the status is there. A player that we've seen a couple times, Ron Cruz, who's come across from Botafogo. Wasn't playing much there. Was at the Club World Cup, but wasn't really involved a lot. But he's been signed on loan, and so what does Pablo Mastroeni do? Those two players, certainly Cruz. I expect you to see him, but Ola Tunji. Just wondering what will happen there. But there's been a lot of money spent up front for Pablo Mastroeni to have reinforcements in the transfer window. So will you see both those guys this weekend to help get beyond Charlotte?
Yeah, and it sounds like what RSL is doing is like, hey, we weren't sure where we were going to be, but they're sitting there, like you said, right on the edge in 10th, and they're really, win out from being in 7th in the West, and they're it's like they're going after it. They're going to make a run
Yeah.
here too at the
They've
end.
got new ownership who want to inject money into it. And the previous owner was only around for a short period of time. They put money into it. Credit to them. They had Arango, who's at San Jose now, but he went cold last year and then was transferred off. You just figure something's gone on there. The fact that Arango's come in, they've spent money on him. RSL last year, he was banging in goals. I forget what his run is, but he barely scored after the summer months last year, and then he was shipped off to San Jose. So they're willing to spend, and they're certainly backing Pablo Mastroeni to go and make a run at this. And they've got talent in their team and their strong structure. Pablo Mastroeni, what a job he's done. It's impressive that he's the 5th longest serving manager, and he's only just got in this job. But the turnstile that's happened, he's the 5th longest serving manager in the league right now.
Wow, that's crazy. Um, so looking at this match, is there something when you look at it, we talked about what a coach manager may do, may not do, but what knowing the players, knowing how this kind of comes out, what do we look for? Do we see this as, okay, Charlotte's got this because we can tell
Yeah.
by this is happening, or oh, RSL's going to take this one because of these things?
Yeah. It's a great question, Nick, because I think that's changed now without Patrick Agyman. And when Charlotte were at their best, when I thought they were on it today, and a great example is San Diego. When San Diego came in and they were the new fresh scent of the league, the polished sports car that is sitting there in the driveway and everybody wants to talk about and look at. They came into Charlotte, and Charlotte were the first team to really punch them on the nose and say, have that. And they did that because of Patrick Agyman and how they played over the top. And Columbus, the same with Dean Smith. What he did with Columbus because of Patrick Agyman is that all of a sudden they thought, wow, how do we deal with this? Is get a solid at the back. You got Malanda back, which is massive. So for Malanda being back, and then put it into Agyman, and then you play off him. See what we get for seconds. We get up the pitch. Now I think there's still a bit of figuring out to do. You could go into Patrick Agyemang, you could play it into Pep Biel. Those are two massive positions that Dean Smith doesn't have that quality in there right now with Pep Biel's injury. So to say Charlotte are really on top of it, I think it's figuring out. I think Leal Abada needs to step up a bit more. And I've seen a difference in him the last few games. I don't know about you, but I feel as though when he's getting on the ball, he's thinking, if it comes off or not, I'm going to get my head down and I'm going to just drive at defenders. No more of just passing it off and, keeping possession, or I'll pick my moments. Every moment is Abada's now when he's getting, and it's positive. It's a breath of fresh air, I think, from him. Just go for it. And I think Kerwin Vargas, he's been in a good run. So I think with those guys and Zaha, you got to get them on the ball. Toklamati, for me, he's scoring goals, I know, but he's drifting too much in and out of games. I think he's trying to find his place. I think those three, if Charlotte are on, they need to be getting on the ball. And for RSL, again, it's big in their system. They're number 10s. They build out through their holding through their 2-6s. And so if they're getting on the ball and turning and playing into the 10s, then that's when things start to really happen for them. So Charlotte will want to eliminate that. But those three that I mentioned before for Charlotte, they get on the ball, they start driving at defenders in the front half. That's when you can see them really, that the shoulders go back, they puff their chest out, and that's when Charlotte starts to get going.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I feel like that Charlotte's defense has been molded back. I mean, I know we got Burn back, but it just feels like it's kind of back to where it was in that kind of sturdiness. And I think that makes everybody else play a little bit more at ease and a little more open. So I feel like that has really been the key to their success, has been getting that defense back to not making those mistakes and just being solid, because then it helps the rest of the offense either have those transitions that they need or do it. So I don't know if it matters whether, who's in there, as long as they're linking up. That was difficult in FC Cincinnati. They just weren't linking up. Whatever they were doing on offense, it wasn't happening, and we were lucky to get the 10 men and Wilf's volley there.
Yeah, and you look at last year compared to this year. Last year, you knew exactly what the back four was going to be, game in, game out. You knew Kalina was on top of his game, and that gave the foundation for Charlotte to really build that confidence off of, and in games when things aren't going well, you had a default button, where that default button hasn't been able to be pushed this year because the chopping and changing, injuries, dip of form of players. But Cincinnati was the first real sign where I thought, there it is. It's coming back. Now I know Toffolo still needs to come into the team. I imagine he'll take that left back position where players are kind of jumping in and out. Although I would say I did like Nathan Byrne and Zaha together. They seem to, and of course they have the English background, but because of Byrne, his age as well, I think Zaha, as much as he'll dig into some of his teammates, there's a part there where there's a bit more understanding, and an understanding of where you've come from, your background, the age of both of those players. And it just felt as though watching that relationship, I thought, that looks like a partnership that Zaha's enjoying. So what happens, Toffolo, I imagine he's got to come in, the profile of the player, the level of the player. Is it Nathan Byrne then goes to the right side? Marshall Ruddy, I think, is in a bit of a rut right now. Needs to come out of it. But in terms of your center back pairing, Tim Ream, I thought was tremendous in the last game. Malanda, there was a couple of moments where he was caught out a little bit, his positioning, but on the ball, the way he was playing out was so good. Kalina, that's the best I've seen of him. I don't know about you, best I've seen of him all season long. So you're starting to get that base back, that core back. And again, timing. Now you got the push to playoffs. If you can get that set, that back four, and again, Toffolo, I'm really interested to see, and I know visas and sorting out his visa and when is he going to be available. But what does that look like to have that back four finally for Dean Smith intact?
Yeah. And then one last question is about new players coming in. Tell me your thoughts of getting Drake Callender.
Interesting. Incredibly interesting. And I mean, Drake Callender isn't a number 2. Drake Callender is a number 1. And so you're bringing in Drake Callender again, Nick. I look forward to getting on the training ground to start to understand that signing. I mean, it's what it says. It's not good news for David Bingham. And David Bingham, who's, done a job and was a number one at previous clubs and sees himself as a number one, would still, in my eyes, for certain clubs, be a number one. But it's not good news for David Bingham, I imagine. But Drake Callender coming in, Kalina's had a dip this year. Is there something going on? But he was tremendous again. And I think that really helped him. I haven't looked at this, and not to say that a player all of a sudden decides to play really well, but the news of Drake Callender, when did that break? Was there something? Did Kalina know going into Cincinnati's game with that transfer happening? And the performance of a player, and again, Kalina, I imagine, is such an honest player. He's given his best week in, week out, but there's something that happens to a player when they know that their job is up for grabs. And I don't think David Bingham ever threatened Kalina in terms of what the manager's stance was for Kalina to feel as though his job is threatened. I just wonder now, what are you going to see from Kalina? Is it going to be more of Cincinnati, given that there's that added push? What are your thoughts with Drake coming in?
I'm like everybody else. I think it's great. It stabilizes everything because like you said, you got another number one, but then it gets me thinking, do they have offers for Kalina? Is he, talk to him after the match and he's like, I got a contract coming up in coming years, this helps. All of the stuff that me playing well helps, but it's such a short leash for a goalie. It's incredibly kind of unfair in some ways for a goalie, because it's like one thing they do, they let in a goal and boom, they're not part of it. And you can have strings of not playing well, but another player out in the field, if they're not playing well through strings, you might miss it because it's not everything they do is not as impactful. So it's kind of interesting with goalies.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the life of a defender as well. You go into a match thinking, I hope I don't mess up. That's the mentality of a defender and a goalkeeper, because if you have that one moment and you're punished for it, everybody looks at that moment.
Right.
Whereas the other way around, the striker goes into a match thinking, I hope I just have one good moment because I'll remember for that too. You can tell I'm a center back and I'm sour to it all. The mentality of, my attacker teammates, that's the life that they lived, was just give me one good moment. And I think just spare me one bad moment.
Yeah. All right. So you got one sentence. If you could describe your gut feeling of the style, tone, or the storyline for this match in one sentence, what would you say?
Hard fought. I think for both teams, it will be you would say a bumping of heads, a battle before you get to the beauty.
Awesome. Well, that's Ross Smith from MLS Season Pass. He's a match day analyst, one of the best voices out there. Go check out his podcast with us, where we did a deep dive into what motivates him, what is Ross' story. So we got that. You can listen to that from last year, and then catch him on every MLS match with his cohort, Tony Husband, and they're on Apple TV. And of course, this Saturday night doing the Charlotte FC match at 7:30 against Real Salt Lake. Thanks again, Ross.
Thanks so much, Nick. You're one of the best at asking questions. I always love chatting with you. Thanks so much for the time.
Sure. Again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Charlotte FC podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people who work for and around Charlotte FC and the world of football. The Charlotte FC podcast is edited and produced by me, Nick Finelli, and Eli Finelli. Please help us out and share this episode with others. 5 stars, and follow CLTFC podcast on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, enjoy the day.